There's the bell, and the 9-round boxing match is already on to round number 2. Good evening and welcome to the WLEW Sports Network presentation of The Strong Side on Sports Radio 1021. I'm Clark Ramsey, your host, and joining me tonight is a true professional. He even has a license to prove it. Please welcome Dave Hansen.
Thanks, Clark. Good to be back. Paul, good to see you. Can't wait to get the Strong Side started.
Also in studio with us is the sports editor of the Huron Daily Tribune, Paul P. Adams.
Oh, what a great night of football we had on Friday night and some games on Thursday. I can't wait to talk about them.
The first game of the season is already in the books, and not too many surprising outcomes through the first week, but certain teams are starting to turn some heads with their offensive potential. On the west side, Ubly took to the ground in air attacks to defeat the USA Patriots. Lakers throttled K-Pac. And in the east, Harbor Beach and Bad Axe were in the arms race to see who could get to 100 points first.
There were some great games, and again, don't want to give too much away, but there were some good games. Can't wait to talk about it and break them down for you.
I think the Harbor Beach Bad Axe game just got done. That's how long that game was going and how many points were scored.
Tonight's edition of The Strong Side is being presented on the WLEW Sports Network by Active Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine, McCormick Motors of Pigeon, Randy's Hunting Center, 269 Guns, Thumb National Bank and Trust, Insure Healthcare Network, Better Health, Better Life. Left side or right side, you're listening to The Strong Side. Listen to the WLEW Sports Network in more ways than ever before. Tune into Sports Radio 1021, download the Cruise 102 app on your Apple or Android device, or listen live and worldwide at WLEWsports.com. Clark Ramsey, your host for The Strong Side tonight. Dave Hansen, of course, in-game analysis here per usual. And from the Huron Daily Tribune, Paul P. Adams. Week number 1 is behind us. Let's take you through the 8-player division scoreboard for this past week. Owen Gage and Caseville squared off on Thursday. Paul Adams was at this game, and it was all Owen Gage, 44-0.
Yeah, no real surprise here. A lot of people thought maybe Owen Gage might take a step back. They did lose a significant amount of players, but what you need to know is David Binder's back. He is our reigning All-Thumb Player of the Year for 8-man, and he showed why. He had a really big night before. His night was shortened. He had a little cramping. There was a lot of cramping going on. Thursday, I think, was a hotter night than Friday night, and players on both sides were definitely dealing with cramping issues. And the other player that you need to know from this team is Jake Warwick. When David Binder went out, Jake Warwick became a workhorse. And then at quarterback was probably the biggest question mark. Jacob Wright, who was a 3-year starting quarterback for Owen Gage, lost to graduation. Aaron Farner came right in, didn't miss a beat, threw some nice balls. Owen Gage is very, very tough.
Let's not forget Caseville is also on the rebound. They're still rebuilding this program, so they still have a ways to go. They had an excellent running back last year. He's not there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Simmons.
Cole Simmons, thank you. His name was totally not there. Anyways, he's not there. He was their main performer. He's gone, so they have a big shoe to fill as well.
Okay, well, and going to fill those shoes is a kid named Chance Shippey. Remember that name. Not nearly as big as Cole Simmons. Very shifty runner, very quick.
Very shippy, you mean.
Yeah, very shippy. I was really impressed with him. And Joe Ellis, quarterback. There's definitely some good things for Caseville. They have the numbers. They're a very young team, but I did see some flashes. They're going to win some games. They just opened up against a very seasoned and tough Owen Gage team. Owen Gage, I think they're going to run the table. I believe we're looking at another 9-0 season, but I look for Caseville to rebound and maybe make that push for the playoffs.
Taking a look at the other scoreboard, Morris takes out Dryden 44-26. Lawrence over Mayville 56-33. Deckerville over Fife Lake Forest area 28-6. To move to 1-0 on the season, Weberville takes out North Huron in Weberville 34-12. After a very close first half, Peck takes out Marion, the librarian, 20-14, and Battle Creek St. Philip squeaks one out over Kingston, 42-34. In 11-player division, Millington absolutely destroys Vassar, 55-6. We'll have more on this game at the end of our show tonight. Reese gets a victory over Carroll, blanking the Tigers, 30-0. Harbor Beach in a shootout against Bad Axe, 64-44. That will be in our B block tonight. Ubly and USA was the game you heard on the WLEW Sports Network on Friday. That was the Ubly Bearcats taking the victory 28-18 over the Patriots. Carrollton knocks out Sandusky in quite the fashion, 41-6. New Haven over Brown City, 28-16. Merrill blanks Marlette in Marlette, 29-0. Lakers throttles K-Pac, 45-7. And Cass City in Flint takes out Hamity, 36-22.
Well, what I noticed is exactly what we thought was going to happen. The West, I thought, had a really good showing, and the East did not. Outside of Ubly and Harbor Beach, there was not a single East team that won, and quite frankly, the East really got annihilated outside of Ubly and Harbor Beach.
Well, let's be real. Harbor Beach really can't be that excited about their performance either. I mean, yeah, you love seeing 60 points go on the board, but your defense allowing 44 to a Bad Axe team without Tommy Morneau, who was maybe the best player in the West last year.
Save it. We're going to talk about it. Save it.
There's lots to talk about because there's a lot of guys, obviously, in these games that did play very well, but that was the shocker to me. You see 44 points given up by a Harbor Beach team at home. That was definitely mind-blowing to me.
Probably the biggest one that sticks out to me is Cass City over Flint Hamady. Flint Hamady was a playoff team the year before, and I think they're going to be a pretty good team. I talked to Amy Cottrell, who is the wife of Scott Cottrell, at the volleyball tournament on Saturday, and she said Flint Hamady was very athletic, and they were glad they took that game to see that kind of athleticism, see the spread, get themselves acquainted to that, just in case they see that down the road in the playoffs. And you got to tip the hat to Cass City. That's a ground and pound type team that faced a spread team and really took it to them. So that's a great opening win for Cass City.
Cass City just 5 victories away from securing an automatic playoff berth in the MHSA postseason. Let's take a look through the game of the week on the WLEW Sports Network. Clark Ramsey, Dave Hansen, Doug Cole, and Kayla O'Neill. On Friday, the Ubly Bearcats traveled west to take on USA in Unionville and Sebring. In the first quarter, from the first play of scrimmage, Ubly has the ball and they fumble it on the first play from scrimmage. USA recovers, and they march down the field in less than 4 minutes, and it's capped off by a Tanner Foley 1-yard run for the score. The 2-point conversion fails. USA's on the board 6-0. The rest of the way out, mostly all Ubly Bearcats. 3:11 in the first quarter remaining, and Ubly's Matt Mychek with a 3-yard pass to Anthony Sweeney in the end zone for 6 points. The 2-point conversion was good, and suddenly Ubly's on top by 2 points, 8-6. Moving into the second quarter, in Ubly, 9:08 left in the first half. Another Mychek 39-yard pass and reception to Jonathan Brandel. The 2-point conversion fails, and suddenly Ubly is out by 8 points, 14-6. They're not done yet, though. 1:28 before halftime. Ubly's Gregory Keller on a 2-yard run. The Sweeney 2-point conversion is good, and suddenly Ubly is up by 16 points, 22-6. The last 90 seconds of that first half, a little sloppy interception by each team before the half ends at 22-6. In the third quarter, USA comes out and strikes first at the 10:07 mark. Tanner Foley breaks out for a 67-yard run into the 10 zone. The 2-point conversion fails, and USA is back within 10 points, 22-12. Ubly still on top. That's the only score in the third quarter. On to the fourth. With 4 minutes remaining in regulation, Ubly's Derek Brown, who had limited touches throughout the entire game, runs in from 1 yard out. The 2-point conversion fails, and Ubly's back out by 16 points. And with 23 seconds left, a last-ditch effort from the Patriots, Ryan Kine, quarterback, 6-yard pass to Macklin Gettle in the end zone. 2-point conversion fails, and it's a 10-point victory for the Ubly Bearcats.
Yeah, Clark mentioned it right away. Derek Brown played a couple series in the first quarter. You did not see him in quarters 2 and 3, and you've seen him part way in quarter 4, mostly because Greg Keller ended up coming up hobbling off. And so that tells you the depth of Ubly at tailback, that if they put their star running back in the fourth quarter after they had a 3-touchdown lead, tells you that their depth at running back isn't there. And also on the other side of the ball, Tanner Foley, shortly after his long touchdown run, he come up lame. He only had a handful of rushes on the day. I think he ended up with 10. But you mean to tell me, if you'd have told me before that game started Tanner Foley was only going to get 10 carries, I'd have picked Ubly by a lot more. So that goes to show you that some of these teams were counting on a couple of their big-time backs. They were not available on Friday night, and I think that impacted the game greatly.
As far as Derek Brown goes, hopefully he can get healthy, because if Ubly's going to have the season that we kind of predicted that they were going to have, we need a healthy Derek Brown on that field, no doubt about it. Because he's a 1,000-yard rusher 3 years in a row. You need that stability, that leader there in the backfield. So hopefully he can get healthy. But a very good win nonetheless without their 1,000-yard rusher, who really didn't do a whole lot in this game.
And I think Clark would agree. In the first half, there's a lot of feeling out process. We were both surprised that Mychek got the the green light to throw the football, and he did very well. I love to see that because teams around here need to be able to air the ball out to get those defenses off the line of scrimmage, spread them out a little bit, open up the run. But I know, again, Clark will attest to this, that offense is a little stagnant without Derek Brown. Derek Brown brings the explosiveness, the home run hitter, the guy that could take it the distance at any given time. He's the guy that does it. And without him, Ubly's still the best team in the East. With him, they are a really, really good team.
That was my big takeaway for at least the Ubly Bearcats, is the balance attack between the running game and the passing game. Historically, Ubly, you might see 3 passes out of them. In this game, they only had to throw the ball 4 times for 3 completions for 75 yards and 2 touchdowns. And only 1 interception for Matt Mychek. And you take a look at the numbers, and Dave, you said it yourself. When Derek Brown was in the game, they were averaging about 5 to 6 yards per carry. Derek Brown out of the game, it was at 2 to 3 yards in a cloud of dust the whole way through. And they had to convert on third downs quite a bit through the whole thing. Ubly, 7 for 11 on third down conversions for 63% versus Ubly, 5 for 12 on third down conversions for 41%. I think that's the stat of the game.
I completely agree with you, and I think without Derek Brown, they rolled the dice a little bit once they had the lead and said, you know what, young Mychek, why don't we let you see you throw the ball a little bit? And a lot of their 2-point conversion attempts came on play action pass. So they had a game plan of letting Mychek throw the football. And as the game went on, you could see USA daring Mychek to throw the football. And he did early in that game. That gave them the big, comfortable lead early. They scored 3 times in the first half. The USA's won. And with less than a minute left in the end of the first half, with 50 yards to go, Coach Kaufman is dialing up pass play. He said, let's see if he can get us into a scoring play where we can steal another touchdown here. Like, he literally, nothing but green light. And it was nice to see, because even though he only threw it 4 times, all 4 of those plays, they were all, the interception was young Mychek, a young quarterback who escaped a sack, trying to make a play when he didn't need to. It was a very athletic play. As he matures, he will know at that situation to just go down or throw it out of bounds. But it was a very athletic play, but the 3 passes before that were right between the numbers, and they went for big gains, 2 of them for touchdowns. It was very impressive to see from a young quarterback making his first start.
To me, the biggest question coming in for Ubly, and we knew a lot about this team, it was at quarterback. How was Matt Mychek going to adjust to playing at the varsity level? It didn't start off so well. I mean, the first play from scrimmage, a fumble, on the exchange. But as he got settled in, we got to see that athleticism that you talked about, Dave, and a really accurate arm. I think this was such a huge first game for him. I mean, there's a lot of jitters, let's be honest. I mean, you're a junior, making a start, taking over for a 3-year veteran quarterback. That's going to give you a lot of nerves, and I think he passed that test really well, and I can't wait to see future games. This was a good USA defense he went against. Now, you got to remember that, so the numbers, only 33 rushing yards. But don't buy up too much into that. I think those numbers are going to improve as the season goes on, and I look for big things from Matt Mychek, more than just a guy who's going to be in there managing the game. I think he's more than a game manager.
Well, what I like about him is that when they put him at the quarterback position, I knew right away, just from seeing him around the area, he's a fast kid. He's very athletic. He plays basketball. I knew he was going to bring athletic ability to the quarterback position, which added a little speed and a little bit of running ability to that running game, that power wing T running game that they like to run. We knew he was going to fit right in, but could he add that extra dimension? That cherry on top to their ice cream, to really to their offense, to really provide the ability to make defenses think, hey, this kid can throw the ball. We can't just crowd the line of scrimmage.
And in the past, out of that wing T, Ubly has shown the ability when they have a quarterback who can run and they trust can run, they'll draw up plays for him to run. So I look for more of that as the weeks go on from Ubly.
Let's take a look at the other side of the ball. USA went for 39 plays, rushing the ball for 186 yards and 1 touchdown. Passing the ball, they were 3 for 7 with 1 interception for 28 yards and a touchdown. And they were led by Tanner Foley rushing the ball with 10 carries, 110 yards, and 1 touchdown. Hunter Bone, 5 touches, 39 yards. Macklin Gettle, 10 carries for 20 yards. And Joshua Lang, 8 carries for 19 yards. Ryan Kine, the quarterback, 3 for 7, 1 interception. Hooked up with Macklin Gettle twice for 27 yards and a score. Tanner Foley with the other reception for 1 yard and a touchdown. What were your takeaways from USA?
We got to see more consistent running out of USA. you take away Tanner Foley, there's no running threat that you have to worry about from USA. So we have to see Hunter Bowen, Macklin Gettle, and Lang step up a little bit. You just can't depend on Tanner Foley to do everything for this offense. So I think they need to be a more diverse running game if they're going to repeat and get back to the playoffs and compete for the Greater Thumb West Championship.
I completely agree. The defense was okay. They did very well for what they were called on to do. Ryan Kine, they let him throw the ball a little bit. It was an experiment process there. He struggled more than Mychek did, but running the football when Tanner Foley was slowed down, this offense severely struggled. Macklin Gettle had a lot of opportunities, but he's a north-south runner, and Ubley was big up front, physical up front, and prevented him from getting free. I liked what I seen out of Hunter Bowen in limited action. He caught a few passes. He was on special teams. He run the ball a couple times. He seemed to do okay, but outside of that, no one really had an exciting run or anything that got Clark and I excited during the game outside of Tanner Foley busting one loose finally in the second half of that game.
Ubley now goes on to play Cass City at home this coming Thursday because of Labor Day. All the games are moved up one day. USA at 0-1 in the season is on the road at Marlette, who is also 0-1 on the season. And for Ubley, this is the first time starting the season with a win since 2011. That year they finished the season at 9-2. Time of possession was in favor of Ubley by 4 percentage points, pretty much 25 minutes to 23 minutes in favor of the Bearcats. One thing I'd like to point out, gentlemen, Dave Hansen with a 1-game lead so far in the media round table. Paul Adams picked Ubley by 2 points. Dave Hansen picked Ubley by 4 points. And, of course, the differential was 10 points.
I'd just like to note, I don't think I picked a winner, an actual game winner, until about week 5 or 6 last year. So I'm off to at least a decent start there.
Well, clearly I didn't pick very many right either beginning of the year, because if you remember, Clark had 3 of the first 5 weeks, I think, to himself.
I almost won the media round table last year.
Yes, it was very close.
And then I wouldn't have to buy myself a trophy. Hey, it's time for a short break. This past segment of the Strong Side was brought to you by Active Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine. Life is painful enough. No need to feel it in your back, too. That's Active Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine, just west of the light in Bad Axe. When we return, we'll take a look at the Bad Axe and Harbor Beach game, as well as K-Pac over in Laker Country. You're listening to The Strong Side on the WLEW Sports Network. Join in the conversation with WLEW Sports on Twitter and Facebook. Simply search for WLEW Sports and click the follow and like buttons on Twitter and Facebook. Receive in-game updates, stats, and even photos from the game. That is the WLEW Sports Network. Clark Ramsey, Dave Hansen, and Paul P. Adams on episode 2 of season 3 of The Strong Side on your home for high school football, Sports Radio 102.1. Our shootout game of the week was Harbor Beach and Bad Axe. I figured there'd be a lot of offense, and that was an understatement of the week. The final score was Harbor Beach 64, Bad Axe 44. We'll try and take you through all these scoring minutes, but due to time restraints, we might have to skip through this a bit. Starts out with James Shelke on a 35-yard run in the first quarter, making it 6-0. Then Harbor Beach's Brady Kirsch makes a 72-yard pass completion to Brendan Shedd. It makes it 12-0 before Bad Axe's Ryan Hleski breaks free for 62 yards to make it 12-8 ball game entering the second quarter. Brady Kirsch with 2 keepers for himself, both for scores, pushing the lead out to 28-8 for the Pirates. And then Ryan Hleski breaks free once again for 19 yards to bring it back to 28-14, still in the second quarter. Brady Kirsch responds with 1-yard keeper to make it 36-14 after a 2-point conversion. And then Bad Axe rounds out the scoring of the first half with an interception into the hands of James Shelke of Harbor Beach. James Shelke runs it back for 32 yards for a score. And the lead for Harbor Beach is 30 points at the half, 44-14. In the third quarter, Ryan Hleski for Bad Axe, 36-yard run, pushes it to 44-20. Then Harbor Beach's Daniel Lanfear with a 50-yard run. From the first play of that drive, 2-point conversion was good, and we still are only not even 5 minutes into the second half, and it's 52-20. Harbor Beach out by 32. Bad Axe's quarterback, Ben McVeigh, on a 65-yard keeper for 2-point conversion is good. 52-28, and then the wheels really start falling off and going top speeds. In the fourth quarter, Brady Kirsch breaks out for 2 completions, both to James Shelke at 50 yards and 22 yards to make it 64-28. You think that's it? Nope, not so much. Bad Axe rounds out the scoring with 2 of their own in the fourth quarter. Ben McVeigh on a 37-yard keeper, and then Bailey Iden on a 16-yard run. And out of breath, 64-44. Harbor Beach wins by 20 points over Bad Axe.
Where do you start? Well, I'll tell you where you start. I got a call from Troy Shelke Saturday morning, and we chatted for a little bit after he gave me some of these stats, and he said one of the craziest games he's ever been associated with, and he's been in the game for over 20 years at head coach, and for him to say that for this game, I think it pretty much sums up this game. None of us saw this coming. 64-44. No way you could have predicted anything like this.
No, I don't think so either. And I don't think either team thought that their defense could possibly give up this many points either. Obviously, we hope both offenses are very, very good, and both defenses will get better, but there's a lot of big scoring plays on that list that Clark went through. I see 70-yard touchdowns, 60-yard touchdowns. The thing for me that stood out is how Harbor Beach has fully committed to go back to the spread offense. I like that. It's exciting. It's a change of pace. I like talking about it, and obviously Brady Kirsch is very capable of running the offense and looked good doing it, at least on Friday night he did. My question is, when you're in the spread, can you still run the football? And obviously Landfair is a guy that none of us talked about, none of us mentioned. I don't think anybody had any conversation about him. And obviously he had a really good night on Friday, and that's going to help keep this Harbor Beach offense looking good and scoring points.
We knew what we were going to get with Brady Kirsch. We knew James Shelke was going to be there.
Did we, though? I think Brady Kirsch has taken a step up. I think he looks better than he did last year.
He's a senior quarterback, one of the few quarterbacks that were actually coming back. You look around the area, Brendan Wisner over at Lakers is back, but pretty much around the area, it's new quarterbacks. So when you can have a senior quarterback who I thought we saw make huge improvements as the season went on last year, I didn't know if we would see this kind of improvement, but we knew him, we knew who he was, we knew who James Shelke was, but we needed to see others. Daniel Landfair, definitely one of those guys, and then Brandon Shedd. That was a tremendous catch and run. That was pretty much all yak, yards after catch on that 72-yard touchdown that he had in the first quarter, and he ran away from two Bad Axe defenders. So that gives Harbor Beach another weapon on the other side of the field to go along with James Shelke. And I want to say something about James Shelke. Remember when his brother Josh had to go and play receiver for a year and then went back to quarterback? And Josh, I thought, had the best hands of any receiver I have ever covered. Well, James Shelke he has those hands, people. He's not maybe as tall as Josh, but his hands are great. If it's thrown in his direction, it's being caught. And him and Brady Kirsch have a great relationship. They know where the other is going to go. And when you got two guys that are on the same page like that, it's a lot of fun to watch.
I think he's just dreaming.
Harbor Beach combined for 496 yards and 8 touchdowns in week number 1 and rallied off 64 points. Mind you, last season, altogether through 9 weeks, they had 146 points total. They put up 64 in week number 1. What's your takeaways from this game, though, gentlemen? Harbor Beach and Bad Axe.
Harbor Beach is going to score points. That's obvious. There's no question about it. I don't know if they're going to go for 64 a game, but what we saw last year, that's in the rearview mirror. This team is going to score points. They're like you said, they're committed to the spread. They only went wing T when they were at the goal line, and they need to ground out a couple of yards. They are primarily a spread team, and they are going to be awfully tough to stop. Defensively, they have to shore things up. 44 points, that's just too big of a number, but you're going to have to try to outscore Harbor Beach. That's just plain and simple. Harbor Beach is going to score.
Well, I'll touch on Harbor Beach real quick. Again, when they run the spread, they have enough athletes. They can make it happen. They're going to score points. I'll take the under on 64 a game, but they're going to score a lot. But we haven't talked enough about Bad Axe. New coach, Kelly Durr, and obviously he's excited about this team because of a guy named Ryan Haleski. That guy, I didn't know what to expect from Bad Axe. I really didn't. I knew McVay was going to slide in a quarterback. I knew he was going to be decent. He was going to give them some stability, a guy you can count on. But Ryan Haleski absolutely run over and destroyed that Harbor Beach defense, and I expect him to do that on a weekly basis against a lot of these teams. Now, it's going to be like the Tommy Morneau syndrome, okay? They're going to key on him. Who can help relieve that pressure? I see, obviously, McVay keeping it himself out of the quarterback position, but the next guy that we know of was Iden had 1 carry. So you can't just feed the rock to the same guy over and over again. Even a defense that struggled like Harbor Beach eventually is going to figure that out. I do think Harbor Beach's defense does shore things up. They had a big lead at the half. I expect that they got some younger guys in. It was a great chance to really see how deep your team is, who's going to help you. You never know what injury is going to happen. So I do think that played a factor, Paul. But you're absolutely right. This defense has got to get better. And if it does, they could compete with Ubley when that big showdown comes at the end of the season.
And just to piggyback off that, I loved what I saw out of Haleski. He moved from the offensive line to the backfield and didn't miss a beat. This kid is a true running back. Big, 6 foot, 180 pounds. He's a load. He's got good moves. He had breakaway speed on a couple of those touchdowns that we mentioned. So he was a lot of fun to watch. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see. I had to leave at halftime for my duties on Friday night to meet our deadline, and I didn't get to see a whole lot of McVay. I'm really glad that McVay got loose there in the second half. That's definitely a good compliment. Well, the other takeaway for Bad X is, hey, it was 44-14 at halftime. Bad X could have said, here we go. It's going to be one of those seasons, and just cashed it in. Instead, they really fought and made this game respectable and didn't quit for their first year coach Kelly Dora. And I think they're going to get better if they can put up 44 against Harbor Beach. They're again, here's a team that's going to be capable of scoring points, but they've got to get things figured out on the defensive end too.
For Bad Axe, Ryan Haleski had 14 carries for 187 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's a pretty good average. Quarterback McVay, 10 carries for 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. Bailey Iden, 1 carry for 15 yards and 1 score. McVay was 3 for 5 in passing for 27 yards and a score. And for Harbor Beach, they're led by Daniel Lanfear with 16 carries, 123 yards and 1 touchdown. Brady Kirsch, 14 carries, 41 yards and 3 touchdowns. And James Shelkey, 3 carries, 37 yards and a score. Passing game, Brady Kirsch was 13 for 20 for 279 yards and 3 touchdowns. James Shelkey had 7 receptions for 131 yards and 2 scores. Brendan Shedd, 3 receptions for 108 yards and 1 touchdown. And Grant Hansen, 2 receptions for 25 yards. Harbor Beach is on the road next week on Thursday at Beaverton, who is 1-0 on the season. And Bad Axe is hosting the Saginaw Novell Panthers, I do believe. Cougars, one or the other. It's a Catholic school, that's all we know. The Catholics of Saginaw are coming in, and you'll hear that game on Sports Radio 102.1.
Yes, you will. Looking forward to seeing a new team like Saginaw Novell. I don't think we've seen them live yet, Clark, so that'll be exciting. And obviously, right in our backyard in the local confines, Bad X. So it should be fun.
Nice short drive home, especially if the game goes late like this past week. Hey, let's take a look at the Lakers and K-Pac squaring off on Friday night in Lakers. Don't have many details on this, but thank you for all the stats we received from all of the teams so far. We're doing great through week 1. First quarter, Jacob Kretschmer with a touchdown, 2-point conversion was good and put Lakers out 8-0. In the second quarter, Brendan Wisner had 2 rushing touchdowns, including a 60-yard run. And then they continued that into the third quarter, extended the lead out to a 31 points by the end of the third quarter, 38-7. And then Hunter Seeley had a pair of rushing touchdowns as well as Keegan Valentine to put the final score, Lakers throttling K-Pac 45-7.
Lakers we expected them to be pretty good. K-Pac is not a good team, but you want to open the season, get off on the right foot, and Lakers definitely did. 45-7. K-Pac was never in this game, and no real surprises. Wisner, Seeley, Kretschmer, Valentine, all the names we talked about on Wednesday, all guys that scored touchdowns. No real surprises there. Lakers, I think, going to be really, really tough. They're not going to be flying under the radar for too much longer.
And they never should have. They have a lot of big name guys coming back. What I did like to see is in a game against K-Pac where the game was clearly in hand early, they let Brendan Wisner throw it a little bit. And I'd like to see those 12 attempts. He didn't really do that well. He was 50% passing, completed 6 of 12 of them, and he had an interception. But that is the type of thing. These are the type of games you want to let him get a little confidence in him, see what he's got, because you know those games are coming. When Lakers are going to play rivals like Cass City, they're going to play USA, they're going to play some of the big teams in the West, and you never know when you're going to need him to dial something up. You want to know what to expect and what he's got. And I like to see that from Lakers, especially in a game that was already in hand. We know they can run the ball. We know Seeley's a great tailback. We know Valentine can do pretty much anything. Probably even wash windows. So there's a lot of playmakers on Lakers offense, but I like to see them try to be multidimensional and try to score and move the ball in different ways.
I love the balance.
Exactly.
You look at 2 guys over 130 yards rushing, then Kretschmer with 61 and Valentine with 42, and all those guys scored. it's just a diverse offense where you can't just say when you're game planning for Lakers, oh, we just have to take Wisner or Sealy out. Oh, go ahead, take Wisner out, and you're going to have to deal with Sealy, Kretschmer, and Valentine. As long as these guys can stay healthy, Lakers is a very, very dangerous team.
Brendan Wisner with 11 carries, 135 yards, and 2 scores. Hunter Sealy right there with him, 13 carries for 133 yards and 2 scores. Then, of course, Jacob Kretschmer, 8 carries, 61 yards, and his touchdown. Keegan Valentine, 6 carries, 42 yards, and a touchdown. And I'm guessing, Dave, Keegan Valentine probably had about, 12 tackles as well, based off of last year's numbers.
We'd be both disappointed if he didn't. All three of us would be disappointed if he didn't.
And the same names for the passing game. Brendan Wisner was 6 for 12 or with 1 interception for 73 yards. 53 of those yards went to Keegan Valentine off of 3 receptions. Brandon Wischlager, 2 receptions for 15 yards. Jacob Kretschmer, 1 for 6 yards. Lakers is on this road next week at Sandusky this Thursday, who is 0-1 in the season after they got absolutely just taken out on Friday against Carrollton. 41-6. K-Pac is against Yale this Thursday, who is 1-0 in the season. Lakers, this is the 4th time they've played K-Pac in the past 4 years in week number 1, and this is 4 wins for them.
Yeah, I think they want to keep them on the schedule for 5 years, 6 years, and after that, if K-Pac will keep playing them.
It's 7:35 on Sports Radio 102.1. You're listening to The Strong Side on the WLEW Sports Network, taking place every Sunday throughout the entire season at 7 p.m. with the exception of Labor Day weekend. We will have no show next weekend because we do not labor on Labor Day. Clark Ramsey, Dave Hansen, and Paul P. Adams from the Huron Daily Tribune join us tonight. And, of course, we're being filmed tonight as well, so you'll be able to check this out somewhere on the Tribune website in the near future. And, gentlemen, I must say, we look darn good tonight. Dave Hansen and Paul Adams showed up wearing the exact same thing tonight. Blue polo, black pants, and even a black ball cap. So I went and changed into my blue polo as well just to make this very pleasing. We're being filmed now, so we're all set.
Just for the record, that was completely unplanned.
Completely unplanned, but it didn't go unnoticed at the golf course.
Correct.
Well, we'll have to wear red or blue or green next week, I guess. But,
right.
Hey, let's take a look. Let's bounce around the entire Greater Thumb Conference here for our last 18 minutes. But Merrill took out Marlette on Friday, and it was Merrill 29, Marlette nothing. No score through the first quarter. Second quarter, Merrill finds the end zone twice. Third quarter, Merrill again with a 2-yard run. Fourth quarter, Derek Cassidy in for a 3-yard run. Final score, 29-0. Marlette, we weren't really sure what to expect coming into the season. Merrill looks like they're firing at all cylinders. They put up 170 yards rushing, 243 yards passing on Marlette. But what's more concerning is Marlette was absolutely shut down. 25 carries for 47 yards as a team. Passing, they were 3 for 11 for 16 yards and 3 interceptions. And they had 3 fumbles. 1 was lost, 4 penalties for 25 yards. Marlette was led by Chisholm for 7 carries, 26 yards. Razielowski with 7 carries for 24 yards. And Ethan McKinney, their quarterback, 11 carries and -3 yards, mostly due to all those sacks. Ethan McKinney for 16 yards passing for 311. Not exactly what you're looking for with Marlette.
You know, Dave and I, we're glass half full guys, but I can't find anything positive for Marlette coming out of this game. I mean, that is just a woeful offensive performance.
Well, we're used to a Marlette team that has struggled defensively usually, but they usually have some playmakers. They can score some points. But this is not at all what I planned on seeing out of Marlette. I expect to see something. They have nothing. I mean, we're talking 4 turnovers. They tried to turn it over 2 more times. The only hiccup on the card for Merrill's, they had a half dozen penalties, and they actually fumbled the ball 3 times. They only lost it once, but obviously it's week 1. A little careless, a little sloppiness can happen. But other than that, Merrill played an absolutely fantastic game.
And I'm not ready to write off Marlette yet. This is why everybody, you know, when I'm at the golf course or when I'm out and about
at a volleyball game or something,
wherever, at a volleyball game, people always want to, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And I tell them, let me see 3 weeks. So let's not judge Marlette on this one game alone. Maybe Merrill is a really, really good team. Maybe Merrill has made deep playoff runs in the past. They have a really good football pedigree over there, and maybe that's just one of those teams. We don't know. Marlette's going to face USA this week. Let's see how that game goes before we start passing judgment on Marlette. But for one game, that's not very pretty. But I want to see a little bit more until I write them off.
We've seen USA up close and personal now, so we will know with the results of the next week game, you know, what Marlette truly has. And if they put up another dud like this, we will know what's going on.
Well, Paul, you bring up a good point. You won 3 weeks before you start making claims. How are we supposed to be hated and look like idiots if we don't make bold predictions early on the season? That's my
That's
question.
why I don't do it.
Right.
Merrill is at Coleman next week on Thursday, who is 0-1 on the season. Marlette 0-1 on the season through 1 week, and they are hosting the USA Patriots, also 0-1. Let's take a look. In Millington and Vassar, they played Thursday night in a classic showdown between the Tri-Valley East and the Greater Thumb West, and it was all Millington all night long. The only bright spot for Vassar was Rivard actually intercepted a pass and took it back for a touchdown, 34-6. Vassar's offense was completely shut down. 34 carries for 51 yards as a team, 2 for 13 in passing for 21 yards, a total of 72 offensive yards for the Vassar Vulcans after last year being one of the most prolific offenses in the entire Greater Thumb Conference.
And they actually had almost as much penalty yardage as they did total yardage. So if that tells you how this game went, and tip your hat to Millington. Obviously, they're a very, very solid team. But Vassar, we knew they lost a lot. We were thinking maybe they had some guys in there they're going to rebound. This was not a good start for them. We'll give them a rain check here on this one. We'll judge them again after next week. But this was a terrible start. And outside of 2 interceptions, Vassar picked off Millington twice. Outside of that, they'd give up well over 300, going on 400 yards of offense, and obviously 55 points. It's a pretty disappointing showing for the Vassar Vulcans.
Yeah, again, I don't want to pass judgment on Vassar. This was a great team last year, and Millington, they're always in that team of the year conversation when we start thinking Thumb Sports Writers Association. They're a tremendous football program over there. Great rivalry, and Vassar didn't have much for it this year, but Vassar's going to be at Brown City next week. So let's see how Vassar, if they can rebound against Brown City and get things righted before we think everything's the ship is completely sinking over there in Vassar.
And the only other team we really haven't talked about tonight, especially for the Greater Thumb West, is Cass City, who they took out Flint Hamady 36-22 on Friday night. We don't have much to go off of, but Paul, why don't you provide your insight?
Yeah, I sat down with Amy Cothrell, talked with her a little bit at the volleyball tournament, and Cass City was really happy to get this game. This was a spread team, very athletic team. Flint Hamady reached the playoffs last year, so I thought this was a great test for Cass City right out of the gate to face a team that really you're not going to see much of in the Greater Thumb West. Nobody really spreads it out that much. I think Bad X will give you some different looks, but for Cass City, great opening win for them to go out, and this was on the road, so away from home, out of their comfort zone, beat a spread team, very athletic, probably the most athletic team they're going to see all year. So I think this was a great opening statement for Cass City.
We were getting some updates during the game, if you remember,
That's
Clark.
right, yeah.
So obviously the same old song and dance. Same with Lakers. Same with Cass City. You see Nick Perry. He scored a couple times. Shade Perzanowski got his. T.J. Moore got one. So the usual suspects as it is for Cass City. Again, so it was good to see them get out early, get the running game going, because we deemed them a really good backfield, maybe the best total backfield around, and they did not disappoint. They ran very well against Flint Hamady.
And Lakers might have something to say about that. They'd be like, hey, now, we showed what we could do against K-Pac. So Cass City's at Ubley this week. I know we're going to talk about the upcoming games. I think this is the game of the week between two teams that reached the playoffs. This is a playoff rematch. I can't wait. This game I'm going to, so I'm going to get to see Cass City up close and personal and get to see Ubley. I'm very excited about seeing that game.
We'll learn a lot about the West. It doesn't matter what happens in this game. In my perspective, I still think Ubley is the best team in the East.
They're the best team with a healthy Derek Brown, though.
I still think they're the best team in the East,
right,
with or without him, if that tells you how strong I feel about Ubley at this point in time. Harbor Beach has got something to prove to me yet. I love the offense. But back to the West, that's where I think we're going to learn a lot. Ubley was able to, without Derek Brown, beat USA and beat them by a couple scores. So how close is this game going to be with Cass City? I think we're going to be able to compare the West a lot thanks to Ubley after next Friday.
And it will be interesting. Cass City is at Ubley on Friday, or on this Thursday, and then next week the following week they're at home against Brown City, and then 2 critical games in the West. To start out Western play, they're at USA and then home against Lakers.
can't wait to see those games, and you guarantee that the Tribune's going to be at both of those games, and I'm sure you guys are going to be at least one of them.
We'll be covering the Lakers and Cass City game, yes, indeed. So should be good to see, and we'll see what the Greater Than West. Do you feel like the West is starting to kind of fold out even after week 1 a little bit, or is it still three-horse race?
Look at the standings. I mean, it's you know what we're going to see at the end. It's going to be Lakers, Cass City, USA, I think.
Right.
In whatever order you're saying. Not at that order.
Not in that order. Those are the teams that came to mind. I did pick Lakers to win, though.
The only thing we learned from Wednesday until today is that Vassar is not going to be considered in that race. We sort of kept them included in the conversation. None of us picked them, but obviously Vassar, I think, is on the rebound.
Well, let's see what Vassar does against Brown
I'm
City.
not ruling them out. I'm just saying, if you ask me right now, Vassar is clearly the 4th team. Obviously, USA lost; they would qualify as 3, and then Lakers and Cass City would be your 1 and 2 right now, based on who won, who lost.
And you know what? I'm kind of excited about Bad Axe. They scored 44 points against Harbor Beach. That can't go unnoticed either. They're going to score points against everybody.
This past segment was brought to you by McCormick Motors of Pigeon, home of the honest sale. See Marion Shetler, Alec McCormick today, and see why all roads lead to McCormick Motors of Pigeon. When we return, we'll take a look at the upcoming week of the Greater Thumb Conference and beyond right here on the WLEW Sports Network. Left side or right side, you're listening to The Strong Side on the WLEW Sports Network, your home for high school football with Clark Ramsey, Dave Hansen, and from the Huron Daily Tribune, Paul P. Adams, sports editor. How many years now, Paul, for you?
15 at the Tribune, I think 5 as sports editor.
All right, time's flying when we're having fun in our blue polos and all. Let's take a look at the second week of the MHSA regular season. Of course, due to Labor Day, it is jumped up to Thursday, so folks can enjoy their weekend still. And Harbor Beach is on the road at Beaverton. Again, their Labor Day started real early, going on the road. Cass City is at Ubley, Lakers at Sandusky, Vassar at Brown City, USA at Marlette. The game of the week on the WLEW Sports Network, Saginaw Novell, is at Bad Axe. And those are your 11-man games. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
Well, I can't agree with Paul enough here in this situation. I love the Cass City Ubley game. I think that's the one that's going to be very exciting. And it's mostly because it's going to tell us a lot about who is the best in the West and how good is Ubley truly. They stood tall against USA. They have another tough foe coming up. And again, I'm not going to leave out our game with Saginaw Novell and Bad Axe. I'm excited to see a Saginaw Novell team we've never seen live and up in person. And new coach, Ryan Haleski had a great game for Bad Axe, a high-powered offense. We love scoring. I'm excited to see those 2 games the most.
Paul Adams.
I want you know my thoughts on Cass City Ubley. It's the game I'm going to. I've kind of laid that out there. I want to see Harbor Beach and Beaverton. I want to see you.
You're going to go to Beaverton and see that?
No, I just want to see what happens there. Great offensive showing for Harbor Beach. I want to see if they could continue that offense clicking and make those defensive improvements, which I think they will. Vassar Brown City doesn't look like much on paper. I just want to see if Vassar has anything, if Millington is just that good and Vassar is completely outclassed, and if Vassar is going to be in that Greater Thumb West mix. USA Marlette, same thing. USA kind of a rough start. Marlette, rough start. 2 0-1 teams, I think, with a lot to prove and could really play a factor in where their seasons go. So I think very important week for some of those teams.
That's a big game for USA, not because it's a must-win game. It's week 2, but they lost to a tough opponent in Ubley. This is a big game for them to hopefully take advantage of another 0-1 team, get themselves win number 1. Remember what win number 1 did for Coach Lang's team last year. It carouseled into a spree of wins, and obviously they would like to get off onto the right foot and get a hot streak going. And keep in mind, there's a lot of crossover games too, so a lot of these games they mean something to us, but not necessarily to who wins their conference separately.
When
obviously.
You look at how tough we think the West is, USA has to win this game, and I don't know who they have in week 3, but they need to win in week 3. They need to get to a 2-1 start before they get to Greater Thumb West play, because if they don't, I mean, you've got Lakers, Cass City, Vassar, all on your schedule.
I don't know the schedule, but I'm sure it has to be it has to be another East team.
USA is home against Sandusky in week number 3.
Which should be another opportunity for them to win. And, Reese, who I think's improved, and Bad Axe, who can score points. I'm interested in this Bad Axe Nouvelle game. Nouvelle really got shellacked against New Lothrop this week, so they're coming in 0-1. Only scored, I think, 8 points in that game, 8 points. So Nouvelle did not have a great showing in week 1. We don't know a whole lot about them. We know Bad X scored a ton of points, so I think this game of the week that you guys have is a very intriguing game.
Sam Novell is not the same Novell of 5-6 years ago.
10 years
It's not
ago,
your
yeah.
state
struggled.
championship caliber
Yeah,
Novell.
they're still darn good because they're Catholic and they're from Saginaw. But when it comes down to it, I think Bad X will see a great competition on Thursday night.
I can't disagree with you. They have to be better than they're showing. My initial thought is New Lothrop is very, very good again. That's my first thought when you tell me what happened there. Obviously, second thought is maybe Novell's not very good, and it will be a good, really good match for Bad X, maybe for an opportunity for them to get their first win of the season.
In 8-player division, we have Deckerville at North Huron, Hale at Caseville, Carsonville, Port Sanilac is at Owen Gage, Kingston is at Dryden, and then on Friday action, Peck is at Mayville. Mayville, of course, making the switch this year to 8-player division for the first time in history there. Gentlemen, final thoughts from tonight.
I'm just glad we got week 1 in the books. I thought it was a great week. Still a ton of questions out there. Cannot wait to see what week 2 brings. There's so much that we still don't know. We think we know a few things, but week 2, I think, is going to really clear a few things up for us.
Well, like I said, it's going to take 3 weeks. So this week is really nice. It's opened our eyes to quite a few different things maybe we haven't seen. Week 2 is going to just make our thoughts that much stronger on one team or the next. Again, looking forward to seeing a new team in Saginaw Novell, and was happy with our first game, Clark. USA All Bleed. It didn't disappoint.
One interesting fact that I'll leave you with tonight, gentlemen, and all of our listeners at home, we had 18 area games this past weekend. Of the 18 games, only 6 home teams won, 12 were away. The away team won on the road. 29-25 was your average score of those 18 games. Of course, we're only in non-divisional games until week number 4, the first 3 weeks of the season in crossovers and in non-conference games. Of course, we will be listening to Bad Axe hosting the second Novell on this Thursday on Sports Radio 1021 with Clark Ramsey and Dave Hansen. Of course, Doug Cole, our Director of Sports Information, and Kayla O'Neill, our Director of Social Media and Media Relations. Tonight's edition of The Strong Side was presented on the WLEW Sports Network by Active Physical Therapy and Sports Medicine, McCormick Motors of Pigeon, Randy's Hunting Center in Bad Axe, Thumb National Bank and Trust, locations all over the Thumb, and now a new location in Bad Axe, and Sure Healthcare Network, Better Health, Better Life. So on behalf of Paul P. Adams from the Huron Daily Tribune, Dave Hansen, in-game analysis, I'm Clark Ramsey, your host of The Strong Side. We will see you this Thursday for week number 2, second Novell at the Bad Axe Hatchets on Sports Radio 1021. Coverage starts at 6:10 p.m. on Sports Radio 1021.